Hello, everybody, and thank you to Embrapa and my friends there for inviting me to give a talk at your conference. My name is Asmund Asdal. I am the Svalbard Global Seed Vault Coordinator. I'm employed at Norgen, which is one of the partners managing the Seed Vault. The Svalbard Global Seed Vault is at the moment the largest backup of seeds of importance for the world's food supply. And I will explain about the history and about how it works. Conservation of seeds in Svalbard started actually in 1984 when backup samples of the Nordic seed collection was placed in a permafrost coal mine in Svalbard. Copies of the Nordic seed collection was placed there together with what we called the 100-year experiment, and you can see how it was packed in those days in wooden boxes, and inside these boxes the seeds were conserved in glass tubes. And as you can see from this page from China newspaper, this gained a lot of attention worldwide, and the discussion started quite early. Would it be possible to store seeds from other countries also in Svalbard and in the cold climate that prevails there? And as you know, many gene banks have lost their seeds due to natural disasters, wars and conflicts, lack of resources, etc. So it was early discussed that the world community of gene banks and genetic resources needed a global safety facility for seed conservation. This was discussed for a couple of decades, and after the conclusion of the international treaty in 2004, a facility study was made, and in 2006, as you can see on this picture, Norway, the Norwegian Prime Minister, together with his Nordic colleagues, announced that Norway would build a seed vault in Svalbard, not only for Nordic seeds, but also for copies of seeds conserved in gene banks all over the world. It was the Norwegian government that built the seed vault. It's owned by Norway, but it is managed and operated in a partnership between the Norwegian Ministry of Agriculture and Food, my organization Norgen, which is the gene bank for the Nordic countries, and the international organization Global Crop Diversity Trust. My job is to handle the seed deposits and contacts with the gene banks, and also give lectures on conferences like yours, and respond to media questions and so on. And we have a partner in Svalbard, which is called Statsbygg, taking care of governmental estate in Norway. They have an office there and look after the facility. So the objectives of the seed vault today is, of course, to conserve security duplicates of unique seed samples that are conserved in gene banks. But we discovered quite early that this quite simple concrete building gained a lot of iconic position. So today we also say that one of the objectives of the seed vault is to contribute to public awareness about the importance of conservation and use of plant genetic resources. And we receive gene bank representatives, politicians, scientists, and of course a lot of media there. So I think it is a quite powerful instrument for public awareness also these days. We had many visitors there. The UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon was there in 2009 and have this And this nice quote we use at different occasions. The seed vault is situated 130 meters above sea surface. It's not in a coal mine, but it's carved out in the mountain just above the Longyearbyen airport, which is the world's northernmost international airport. This is an overview of the facility. There's a long tunnel, and we have 3 seed chambers by the end of this tunnel. Each of these chambers can store about 1.5 million seed samples, and despite the threat of climate change, the seeds inside the seed vault is not threatened by climate change, because we have artificial cooling there, and as such the seed vault is not dependent on permafrost. The temperature inside is a constant at minus 18 Celsius degrees. And an extensive upgrade was finalized in 2019, and now we have a waterproof entrance tunnel there and a new modern upgraded cooling system, keeping the temperature stable at minus 18. The main principles for cooperating with gene banks about the conservation and use of genetic resources and securing their seeds in the seed vault is the following. The seed vault conserves genetic material for food and agriculture, meaning that for the time being we do not conserve forest genetic resources, for instance, and not just ornamental plants. It's also important to say that the seeds in the seed vault is owned by the depositors. We do not open the boxes. The seeds are the property of the gene banks, and withdrawals of seeds can only be made by the owner gene bank. One of the conditions, actually the most important conditions, is forest conservation of seeds in the seed vault, is that the genetic resources should be available for research, breeding, and education, and seeds should be available from the stocks of the depositing gene banks. And deposits are free of charge, and it's also important that we do not do anything to monitor and test the viability of the seeds in the seed vault. That is the responsibility of the depositor, and this is done in a way that the depositor gene bank has seeds of the same yield at their primary gene bank, and when they test these and see that seeds should be replaced with new seeds, they should also send new seeds to the seed vault. The process is that the first step, the depositor gene bank and the Norwegian Ministry of Agriculture and Food sign the deposit agreement, and then when the gene bank has seeds ready to be packed and sent, we receive a depositor's accession lists. We upload and validate this accession list in the seed portal, which is our database. The Norwegian Food Authority issue an import permission, and then the seeds are sent to Longyearbyen Airport, which is the airport in Svalbard. We scan the boxes at the airport for being sure that no items besides seeds are carried into the vault, and then we bring seeds in the shelves in the vault, and then we send images and confirmation to the depositor that the seeds are well in place, and we update the seed portal. Norgen's tasks here is to organize the seed deposits and operate this database. This is our online seed portal that can be accessed by anyone. Journalists use this often, depositor gene banks can use it, and at any time have updated information about seed samples that are stored in the vault. So at the moment we have 93 depositor gene banks depositing 4,944 species in the seed vault, representing almost 6,000 different species. And here are some statistics. We have sent the seeds back to ICARDA. I'm coming back to that. So the total amount of samples deposited is actually more than 1.3 million samples. This is the ICARDA story. ICARDA is the International Center for Agricultural Research in Dry Areas. And so far, this is the only gene bank that has requested seeds to be returned. ICARDA previously had the headquarters and gene bank in Aleppo in Syria. And during the first years of the seed vault opening, that opened in 2008 and until 2014, they luckily deposited duplicates of most of their seed samples. In 2015, they realized that the gene bank in Aleppo was partly destroyed and partly inaccessible, and they decided to withdraw the seeds from the seed vault. The seeds from the seed vault were sent to ICARDA units in Lebanon and Morocco, and ICARDA was able to establish new gene banks there. And already now, just a few years later, they have already redeposited more than 100,000 samples in the seed vault. So this is, despite the sad story about Syria and Aleppo and the gene bank there, it's a success story for the seed vault, illustrating very well the importance of having a facility like this. This is a graph showing the increase of seed samples from the beginning in 2008 until 2021. And it's very nice to see that every year new samples have been sent to the seed vault and new depositors have joined the family of depositor gene banks in the seed vault. The drops in the line you see here is those that is due to the withdrawal of seeds made by ICARDA. This is a cake, or what you should call it, showing the depositor categories. We have 2/3 deposited by these large international centers. 1/3 is national gene banks. Your gene bank at Embrapa is one of these, and then we have a couple of regional gene bank. My gene bank, Nordic Genetic Resource Center, is one of these, and then we have very few private and NGO gene banks. This is graphs showing the top 24 crops. As you can see, wheat is represented with more than 200,000 samples, rice with about 170,000 samples, barley 90,000, and then you can see several tens of thousands of samples of sorghum, beans, corn, vigna beans, soybean, chickpeas, alfalfa, triticale, kikuyu grass. Nightshade is the potato family, oats, peanuts, other peas, lentils, pigeon pea, mustard, that is the brassica group, the cabbage and related crops, goosegrass, vetch clovers, and ryegrass. And in the other end, we have crops that are represented with just 1 or 2 samples. This is a picture showing the front page of the search option in the seed portal. As you can see here, I have searched for samples deposited by Embrapa, and as you can see, Embrapa has deposited for the time being a total of 5,122 samples, and the last samples was actually deposited earlier this year. And this is a list showing the accessions and crops that are deposited by Embrapa in the seed vault. You can see that rice is represented with more than 3,500 samples. Then we have around 500 samples of Phaseolus bean, almost 500 samples of maize, and then several samples of these other crops. This is probably a small portion of what you have, and we look forward to good cooperation with Embrapa also in the following years. I should also, before I stop, explain to you about the 100-year experiment in the seed vault. Knowledge about how long seeds can stay alive is important for gene banks. They spend a lot of resources on testing their seeds, and if they could predict how long the seeds would stay alive, that it would be much resources saved, and that's why we have established a 100-year experiment in the seed vault, and Embrapa is part of this experiment, and we are very happy to receive soybean seeds from Embrapa for this experiment. 14 globally important crops are included. Seeds are produced over 3 different growing seasons, and 5 different varieties of each crop is included. So we dry and pack the seeds at our Nordian lab, and we put the seeds in the seed vault, and test seeds are tested for germination every 10 years. Here you can see a list of the partners in the experiment. Rice seeds are coming from Thailand, barley, pea, lettuce, brassica, and I'm not able to see behind my picture there, but 5 crops are coming from German gene bank, and 5 crops from Ecrisat in India. Maize is coming from Portugal, Timothy is coming from our Nordic Institute, and as said, soybean seeds are provided by Embrapa, and we are very grateful about that. And hopefully this project during the coming decades will provide much useful information about how long seeds can stay alive in gene banks at the -18 degrees. And I will stop my presentation by showing this picture. The text to the right here is that conflicts are cooled down in the seed vault, and that's a quote I use quite often, because here in the shelves in the seed vault you find seed samples and seed boxes from different countries that often are not the best friends outside, but although conflicts and disagreements, seed scientists and gene banks are cooperating on this important task. And you can see Embrapa boxes just here, number 2 from right at the bottom of this picture, with the Brazilian flag. They are in good company inside the seed vault. I think that's what I wanted to explain in your nice conference. Thanks for giving me this opportunity, and the Seed Vault and myself is looking forward to future cooperation. And good luck with your conference.